The sky's mood swings are absolutely ridiculous lately. It was beautifully sunny this morning, but fate suddenly dumped a massive downpour tonight. Poor Wanyi ended up looking like a completely soaked puppy. Good heavens, I cannot believe this absurdly heavy storm. Shielding myself was completely useless against this massive storm. Thank goodness my tragic luck spared me enough to reach my supermarket shift exactly on time. Exhausted, our dripping heroine desperately hunted for paper towels, all while frantically organizing the colorful snacks on the convenience store shelves. 7 days into this part-time gig, and I am surviving! This charming little town is already starting to feel like home. However, tomorrow requires a fierce hunt for another job. Ideally, a magical gig offering both cozy shelter and warm meals. Then my dear aunt and uncle can finally have their peace, and I might actually build a tiny fortune of my own. While perfectly aligning the instant noodles, she kept her senses sharp. Wait a second. The door is just unlocked. So, who is making that creepy sound? False alarm? It was merely her uncle, the proud boss of this little shop. Our innocent heroine had just recently relocated here from a quiet country village. Her generous relatives kindly offered up a spare room. As a completely fair trade, she bravely battled evening shifts at this very counter to perfectly cover her daily living expenses. Spotting our diligent girl hustling, her uncle gently walked over and cooed, "Dear Wanyi, is it not totally exhausting braving the dark to work this late shift? Oh my, look at you, completely drenched and looking like a pitiful wet kitten. I mean, no offense. I just need you to realize that your aunt is incredibly shallow. Seriously, do not let her dramatically absurd rants bother your heart. We are family. Who would actually toss you out?" Hearing his dramatic speech, Wanyi just playfully brushed it all off. She flashed a sweet, knowing smile. "I totally understand, Uncle." Honestly, the hilarious, petty family drama between her quirky relatives and Wanyi was absolutely real. Yet as a humble freeloader trapped in their dramatic household, how could she dare complain aloud? Swallowing her pride after that ridiculous lecture, Wanyi smiled sweetly. "Dearest Uncle, midnight approaches, and a massive storm is currently brewing. You must hurry back home before a torrential downpour traps you. Why rush away now?" That creepy relative immediately flashed an incredibly villainous smirk. "We have tragically missed seeing each other for several long, agonizing years. We absolutely must gossip more. Chuckle, what a delightfully sweet fragrance! Do all innocent young students radiate such an intoxicatingly lovely floral perfume?" With every rambling word, Wanyi's sleazy uncle crept closer, actually attempting some ridiculously gross and totally shameless moves. This absolutely disgusted Wanyi. She genuinely hoped this creepy uncle would finally shut up if ignored. But nope, the jerk grew far more shameless. "Sweet Wanyi, your parents died so young. You truly have zero family left in this massive world. Surviving completely alone must have been so terribly hard. So if you use that pretty brain, why not become my little darling? I will gladly buy whatever your sweetheart desires." "Are you totally insane, you absolute garbage dump?" Our fierce Wanyi simply snapped. She spun around instantly, delivering a brutally majestic kick to his family jewels, making him shriek in pure torment. Bloody hell. I actually wasted my tears viewing you as my absolute sole relative alive. How dare you spout such toxic garbage at me, you utterly shameless creep? It is so abundantly clear I cannot stay in this hellhole. Breathing the same air as such trash is sickening. Spitting those words, she marched off. She genuinely thought her dark nightmare was entirely over. But alas, this vile pervert was fully psychotic. Furious that his creepy romantic advances horribly failed, the lunatic decided to smash massive beer bottles onto her poor head to force their bond. Wanyi was completely utterly paralyzed with shock that this deranged psycho actually cracked her skull. The devastating ambush was so blindingly fast that Wanyi instantly faded into a deep, endless abyss. Where in the world is this? Did I literally just ascend to heaven? Sweet heavens, why does my skull violently throb? What a psycho. While Wanyi lay totally bewildered in the darkness, the loud wails of a crying child echoed. "What now? I was just at the local mart." How on earth did a random sobbing toddler sneak into my vicinity? Panicking intensely, our poor Lavenhai violently jolted. Seeing two tiny kids staring back at her, she grew unimaginably dizzy. Wait, what did you just call me? Eldest? Sister? Lavenhai furiously squinted at the two adorable brats in absolute panic. Hold up, why are these toddlers wearing ancient hanfu? Plus, this dump is a thatched hut. What in the hell is happening? Eldest sister-in-law, do you not recognize me? I am little Han Dong. Did you lose your memory? Han Dong? Lavenhai was basically drowning in pure, absolute confusion. Are your names seriously Han Dong and Han Mak? Wait! Lavenhai's forgotten memories began returning. I recall precisely 6 months ago, I was hired as a background extra for an epic movie. The handsome lead's younger sister was named Han Dong, and he totally had a baby brother named Han Mak. Wait, what on earth? Did that old geezer's flying beer bottle really just smash me into a romantic isekai? At first, Lavenhai felt quite skeptical. But after checking the ancient silk robes she wore again, her old life was over. She had actually magically transmigrated. If her memory was completely correct, she definitely fell into that historical drama. The epic plot originated from a web novel, making it beautifully, ridiculously complicated. The grand storyline featured a brilliant male lead climbing the royal ranks. Sadly, his tragic ex-wife was just a doomed side character. That miserable villainess burned into my memory for one absolutely horrifying reason. We shared the exact same name, Lavenhai. The handsome main character started off dirt poor, engaged to her while living with his humble parents. But the spoiled Lavenhai only knew a dazzling life of absolute, unmatched luxury. Doing absolutely nothing but creating hilarious disasters for her poor husband, that humble household truly never saw a single peaceful day. The handsome Han Diep reached his absolute limit, forcing him to violently write a divorce letter. But who could predict the insane plot twist? Shortly after, he crushed the royal exams, becoming the absolute top scholar in one strike. Soon after, his glorious influence absolutely dominated the magnificent court. Crowned youngest prime minister of the legendary Tianlong Empire, he wed the stunning 9th princess. As for the tragic Lavenhai, hearing about her ex-husband's glorious promotion and his gorgeous new bride completely shattered her fragile, dramatic ego. Unable to bear the absolute humiliation, she bitterly departed this magical world. That completely explains why my neck feels incredibly sore, Lavenhai grumbled internally. I must have tragically attempted hanging myself. That completely explains why these weeping kids desperately attempted saving me. Thank goodness the cheap rope broke, or my soul already ascended heaven. While the panicked Lavenhai remained frozen and completely clueless, tiny Han Dong suddenly crept to her side, offering an incredibly gentle whisper. Big sister-in-law, are you feeling okay? Does it hurt terribly anywhere else? Please do not worry about my well-being. I am perfectly fine. Heart melting, Lavenhai offered a warm smile while gently patting Dung Dung. But in hilarious contrast to that sweet angel, young Han Mak looked fiercely unamused. Watching his precious sister drift dangerously close to the family menace, the protective boy sharply yanked her hand in warning. Ah, magical reality check! Lavenhai instantly remembered her villainous character had a terribly toxic relationship with her in-laws. Because honestly, who would ever absolutely adore a dramatic daily disaster machine? Yet, the incredibly sweet little sister of Han Diep was a rare exception. Instead of glaring with pure hatred, she constantly shared silly jokes cheering my miserable mood. Han Mak is slightly older and completely sees my nonsense, keeping his guard up. Whatever, those two can judge. Heavens, I feel so insanely hungry. Stretching her arms incredibly wide, Lavenhai cheerfully announced to the quiet room. Everyone must be totally starving. Allow me to bravely raid the kitchen for a magical feast. After all, surviving this romantic comedy means filling our empty bellies first. With absolute optimism, Lavenhai eagerly marched into the rustic kitchen hunting ingredients. Her tragic soul had literally eaten nothing today. Surviving on endless modern deliveries. Who even found time eating properly? I desperately wonder what hidden treasures await inside here. Hopefully, the mysterious ingredients are actually edible. But her sparkling romantic delusions completely shattered, because that miserable ancient kitchen remained absolutely empty. Oh, that makes tragic sense. Before gorgeous Handiep secured power, they owned literally nothing. Drowning in this heartbreaking level of poverty, where would they find a single grain of rice? As the starving villainess tragically clutched her fiercely protesting stomach, a bizarre chime echoed. Ding ding, welcome to your magical convenience store. Please kindly check your body temperature and securely wear a mask. Wait, what comedic nonsense? Why am I hearing an automated modern supermarket voice in ancient times? Did my favorite grocery store magically transmigrate into this historical drama with me? Before her totally confused brain could process this hilarious twist, the magical system cheerfully blasted its voice. Notice! As the handsome male lead Handiep increases his sweet romantic affection, this fantastic supermarket will magically level up. Warning! Should his precious love drop, your delicious food literally vanishes? Your miserable romantic score currently sits at a pathetic 25 out of 100. Please proceed with extreme romantic caution. What in the heavens? Has my intense starvation finally triggered full-blown comedic hallucinations? Doubting her sanity, the bewildered girl nervously touched the floating holographic goods. Holy heavens! These plump chicken eggs are absolutely real! They are magnificently real! My goodness! This glorious snack paradise truly followed my soul across time! Honestly, it tracks perfectly here. If an ordinary girl can magically transmigrate, why cannot this perfectly good grocery store? Having cheats is fantastic, the villainess cheered internally. But tragically, her pathetic affection level only unlocked a single bag of cheap cornmeal, 6 eggs, and 2 cabbages. Every other luxurious snack completely vanished. Just as she comically pouted over her tragic inventory, the breathtakingly handsome Handiep suddenly walked inside. Okay, game on! I simply must charm this gorgeous man into loving me, unlocking precious snacks. Faking a little sweet romance and absolute gentleness will not cost me a penny. For my starving stomach, I must swallow my immense pride and yield first. The scheming wife quickly fluttered straight into the living room, putting on a sickeningly sweet performance. Welcome home, darling. You must be absolutely exhausted working outside. Shall your devoted wife draw a warm, relaxing bath this very instant? The scheming girl smugly patted herself, certain that such a heart-fluttering wifely display would completely melt his icy heart, boosting his romance points. But the hilarious, absolute disaster remained totally unexpected. Because his wife acting so deeply concerned felt utterly bizarre, the wary Handiep fiercely raised his absolute highest guard. Thus, his precious favorability rating instantly plummeted, and her magical cabbage tragically vanished from the system. Heavens above! What pure madness! Why is this handsome man so paranoid? Does he doubt my warmth? If this tragic starvation continues, my lonely soul will literally fly straight into paradise. Fine, I will painfully swallow my pride today. Viciously roasting this paranoid man can easily wait until my inventory overflows with glorious, delicious meals. Darling husband, skipping your bath today? I will cook a delicious feast immediately. Washing up later is fine. Ironically, this incredibly sweet affection only made the brooding man burn with frustration. That meant her magical system inventory vanished completely. Even the golden cornmeal sprouted tiny wings and escaped. Utter poverty truly invites the most miserable disasters. Before I dare speak to this frustrating man ever again, I must absolutely secure all my precious cooking ingredients in advance. This unpredictable man is extremely dangerous, she cursed silently. Well, I will ignore this disaster. The tiny kids looked absolutely heartbroken and anxious. Big brother, did you bring rice back? The innocent little girl was too young to grasp their harsh reality. Little Han Mac had much sharper senses. The sweet boy gripped his brother's calloused hand, pressing on. Big brother, did nobody buy our firewood again? Spotting their guardian's crestfallen expression, the two precious angels felt their own tiny hearts sink into gloomy sadness. Your big brother failed to make sales today, but walking homeward, I managed to unearth several decent potatoes alongside fresh wild mountain greens. Tonight, we must settle for these scraps. but tomorrow I promise better. Honestly, Wanyi completely despised the brooding Han Diep, yet witnessing this pitiful scene truly pierced her soft heart. Well, my magical supermarket inventory is low anyway. I could devour these eggs alone, so splitting them with this dramatic household works totally fine. Seeing the treasure, Dung Dung practically exploded with absolute joy. Goodness gracious, we get real eggs tonight. I missed eggs so much. I feel thrilled, dearest sister-in-law. Wanyi gazed at sweet Dung Dung with pure affection. Then your magnificent sister-in-law shall whip up an amazing feast. Tonight's fluffy scrambled eggs will surely taste like absolute heaven. Dung Dung and Han Mak cheered without hesitation, but suspicious Han Diep felt intense caution. Hey, crazy woman, answer me immediately. Where did those mysterious eggs come from? I spent my personal funds on them. Is that suddenly forbidden? Wanyi internally seethed with blazing comedic fury. Obviously, if this lunatic had not interfered, her precious cornmeal and crisp cabbage would remain perfectly safe. Because of his antics, only sad eggs survived. Wanyi entirely abandoned her romantic charm offensive, refusing to fake a sweet angelic attitude anymore. Humph! Wait a second. Did my sassy tone sound overly cruel? Will his romance meter crash? Wanyi panicked internally. Miraculously, he stayed perfectly normal today, keeping his romantic affection score intact. Was the former villainess inhabiting this lovely body truly such a tyrannical menace? Maintaining his current neutral attitude feels safe, yet I must aggressively farm romance points somehow. Remaining completely romantically stagnant equals absolute tragic doom. My glorious survival journey remains incredibly long. Thus, through Lavanya's magic, the Han household dinner instantly transformed into a wonderfully substantial feast. The steaming, golden feast looked divine, making both precious children bubble with joy. She assumed hungry little Han Mak and Dung Dung would ravenously devour everything instantly. Yet surprisingly, they trembled like terrified bunnies, expecting a vicious monster to chomp them instead. Hearing her brooding husband speak, Wanyi suddenly discovered a horrifying truth. Her villainous past self had enforced an absolutely diabolical household eating rule. The wicked woman demanded to feast alone first, forcing her starving family to wait until her royal stomach was stuffed tight. What an utterly despicable tyrant! How could anyone cruelly serve their cold leftovers? Well, starting immediately, that toxic law is destroyed. Our entire family shall dine together as equals, Wanyi declared with an angelic smile, making her wary husband's protective paranoia utterly skyrocket. Wanyi, did you poison these eggs? She smiled mischievously, refusing to answer, and just playfully made a sarcastic remark. If you refuse to bite, let those two devour it. Just do not cry when every morsel vanishes. Thus, while Han Diep remained intensely suspicious, he felt helpless. He figured he might as well bravely sample her lovely poison. Her golden egg dish was absurdly delicious, melting his icy guard and making him devour extra portions. Instantly, the sweet system chimed as his hidden affection level skyrocketed through the roof. Meanwhile, the precious cabbage magically respawned in her store. Hearing the ding, Wanyi gasped in absolute shock and choked on her rice. With these wild emotional roller coasters, she would truly suffer a fatal heart attack and ascend to heaven. Everyone move aside so she could chug some water. Her head spun wildly. Thus, a totally flustered Wanyi blindly dashed away in panic, ignoring her surroundings entirely. Thud! She crashed solidly into Han Diep. Nothing happened. Yet, according to those two dramatic brats, the innocent collision became a passionate kiss. This spicy rumor left both adults blushing furiously, standing there completely frozen in absolute embarrassment. Blushing madly, Wanyi sprinted away at lightning speed. This left Han Diep bewildered. Was she actually shy? Back then, if I merely brushed against her, she would threaten to burn my entire estate to ashes. Why is her adorable reaction tonight so mysteriously different? Meanwhile, our completely flustered Wanyi was questioning her own racing heart. I am clearly 20 years old, a truly modern woman at that. That was merely a tiny little bump earlier, so why am I acting so flustered? Retreating into the kitchen, A sudden hilarious thought struck her. Wait a minute, what is my face like nowadays? Seriously, after waking up, I have been wildly panicking without a spare second for mirrors. She desperately sprinted toward an old wooden water barrel outside and nervously inspected her reflection. My facial features remained basically identical, yet somehow I look 100 times more gorgeous. This villainous body is wonderfully slender, pushing my absolute beauty stats right off the charts. Wow, I am truly a breathtaking knockout girl. No wonder her handsome husband tolerated this awful tyrant. He actually gritted his teeth and stayed put, mostly thanks to this ridiculously stunning face. During her narcissistic daydream, a tall shadow abruptly loomed over, giving her a massive heart attack. She nearly tumbled into the water. Are you feeling sick? Why have you abandoned the dinner table? Because his sudden arrival sent her into panic, she felt incredibly awkward. My stomach is throwing a weird tantrum, so I am completely full. You guys simply dig right in first. Absolutely do not wait. The hilarious truth? She was blushing furiously, dodging her gorgeous husband completely today. But in his traumatized brain, he wrongly assumed she felt utterly disgusted, making his heart sink. Fine, I shall keep a warm bowl for you. Please remember to grab a bite later. After I scrub these dishes, I must get our little siblings properly washed. Darkness has fallen entirely. Growing sprouts cannot stay awake indefinitely. They desperately need their beauty sleep now. He immediately vanished like an elusive ghost, leaving her completely paralyzed by absolute terror. Heavens! We share a bedroom! Holy mother of crazy plot twists! Am I genuinely supposed to fulfill some romantic wifely duties under those shared blankets tonight? Despite her silent internal screaming, the terrifying night eventually fell. Once those precious kids started snoring loudly, her handsome husband began pacing around doing random chores, dialing her romantic anxiety up tremendously. Good heavens! My genius master plan was waiting for him to pass out first. But look at him, aggressively sewing a ripped shirt like his life depends. Where does this endless nocturnal energy originate? He keeps dawdling eternally, making my heavy eyelids droop until I practically collapse completely. Yet I am absolutely terrified of closing my eyes. Through her sleepy squints, she hilariously noticed he looked utterly exhausted too, but he stubbornly refused stepping toward their mattress. What on earth was wrong? Snapping out of her exhausted daze, she marched right over demanding answers. Hey, why are you still wide awake? Are you an owl? He glared at her, completely baffled. Because of you! The cruel house rule dictates you sleep first, then me. If Her Royal Highness remains awake, how could this lowly servant dare to rest securely? Ouch! Talk about heavy, lingering trauma! Rubbing her throbbing temples, she sighed deeply. I sincerely apologize for beforehand. But please just slip under the covers tonight. I swear upon my beating heart, no crazy drama. Is this another wicked little trap? He narrowed his sharp eyes, radiating extreme suspicion regarding her sudden sweetness. You fed me these exact same deceptive little lines previously, then threw a monstrous overnight tantrum, leaving my entire household completely sleep-deprived. My poor siblings are just tiny little sprouts. They require peaceful rest to grow properly. Spare us your dramatic theater. Heavens above, I am literally begging you. Simply hit the hay immediately. No hidden traps, zero toxic drama. I just desperately want my stubborn husband resting comfortably tonight. Eventually, it took a hilarious fake threat of violence to finally drag his stubborn body into bed. However, maintaining an absolutely massive invisible wall between their trembling bodies was the ultimate survival tactic. He pretended his eyes were shut tight, but internally, the traumatized scholar remained on extremely high alert against sudden surprise attacks. She acts way too suspiciously sweet. Letting my guard down equals total disaster. Fine, I will keep one eye open guarding myself. Otherwise, she might literally smother my face with pillows. Despite his incredibly dramatic paranoia regarding his safety, extreme physical exhaustion rapidly overwhelmed his deeply stubborn and fearful mind, sending him into dreamland instantly. Creeping over like a stealthy ninja, she finally relaxed her tense shoulders, plotting her next epic move. Wait a second. Today perfectly matches that crazy web novel timeline. This precise romantic chaos happened back in Chapter 3. Without a doubt, my sweet scholar earned pathetic copper coins chopping heavy firewood today. But heading homeward, he stumbled upon a miserable elder. Despite his own painfully empty wallet, witnessing that frail grandfather covered in terrible dirt, starving and shivering pitifully, his golden retriever heart completely melted. Thus, he handed over his hard-earned cash, chalking it up to positive karmic destiny. I definitely skipped finishing that lengthy book, yet I firmly know that beggar is basically a disguised deity. He eventually becomes the legendary benefactor funding every single imperial exam for my husband. That mysterious elder handles astronomical tuition fees flawlessly. See? Compassionate souls absolutely summon the ultimate plot armor for righteous male leads to thrive. However, relying solely on plot armor fails. I must unleash my modern brain to stack serious cash. Then, his scholarly journey upwards remains incredibly luxurious, allowing him zero anxiety regarding our adorable little siblings back home. After all, my handsome man is purely genius. Should the original storyline stay accurately on its destined track, he will absolutely ace the imperial exams, becoming a mighty government official very rapidly soon. Consequently, I transform into the wealthy, untouchable wife. Pondering this brilliant future, her heart danced with absolutely overwhelming, bubbly delight. Once my magnificent husband secures absolute power, I can just lean back and embrace a pampered life. Dreaming about it brings me pure, absolute joy. Regardless, tonight yielded fantastic results. If I keep this gorgeous man happy, my magical supermarket will absolutely thrive again. Wrapped in these sweet thoughts, Lavanvi drifted into dreamland. Deep in the quiet night, Handiep unexpectedly awoke. With immense tenderness, he carefully tucked his sleeping wife in. Watching his wife slumber peacefully, a sudden, complicated tension gripped Handiep. Honestly, since our chaotic wedding day, this was the very first moment I ever truly watched her peaceful sleeping face. Deep down, Lavanvi was never truly a wicked villainess, but her bright spirit painfully twisted as she matured. That tragic shift was entirely her heavily biased father's doing. Lavanvi's mother perished tragically early. Escaping genuine grief, her cruel father threw a disgustingly cheap funeral simply to brush the tragedy away. Then, barely 12 months later, he shamelessly paraded a wicked bride home. Worse still, throughout those dark years, trapped with that vile stepmother, she suffered endless, agonizing abuse. Consequently, Lavanvi's once pure heart grew incredibly corrupted from that nightmare onward. Remembering our disastrous wedding day, that precious dowry her real mother painstakingly prepared was maliciously stolen by her wicked stepmother. Following that, her ruthless father drugged her, plunging Lavanvi into an unnaturally deep slumber and tossed her into my remote village aboard a pathetic donkey cart. As a pampered lady who would not explode with fury after such humiliating insults. But Lavanvi, rest easy. Whatever your true nature, I will fiercely remain right by your side. If you sincerely treat me with kindness, I swear to never disappoint you. However, should you ever maliciously target my beloved family, I cannot guarantee my mercy! While the conflicted Handiep drowned in these intense thoughts, Lavanvi unexpectedly rolled over, giving the startled Handiep a massive, heart-stopping fright. Thankfully, their hastily built pillow fortress still appeared absolutely secure. Yet, ridiculously, upon waking the next morning, Lavanvi and Handiep were intimately tangled in an embrace. What a hilariously impossible, utterly hopeless situation! Lavanvi jolted awake, utterly bewildered, temporarily forgetting her magical transmigration. She panicked, frantically intending to rapidly rush out for grueling supermarket deliveries. Luckily, as a transmigrated heroine, those exhausting retail nightmares were officially ancient history. However, the exact moment she spotted Handiep sleeping intimately beside her, her terrified soul completely abandoned her intensely panicking body. Handiep quickly snapped awake next. Witnessing this scene, the already flustered Lavanvi blushed an adorably deep shade of crimson. Handiep's face burned with intense embarrassment. He awkwardly stammered, "I absolutely must chop firewood immediately. I simply cannot oversleep any longer." Escaping the tension, Han Diep and La Van Vie scrambled from bed, quickly washing up to tackle their pressing daily household chores. Hearing the commotion, little Han Dung and Han Mak cautiously shouted, "Eldest sister-in-law, are you awake?" The two timid kids nervously waited a moment. Receiving no response, the brave duo stepped inside to investigate. Thankfully, La Van Vie was actually already fully awake. Han Mak and Han Dung hurriedly scurried forward, hauling a water basin, cheerfully chirping, "Please comfortably wash your face." "Eldest sister-in-law, I prepared hot water for you." Observing the highly cautious, submissive demeanor of these two sweet kids, La Van Vie massaged her temples, sighing. This must be another ridiculous decree established by her insanely unreasonable original self. Why did she ruthlessly overwork these toddlers? Witnessing their shaking hands, La Van Vie's heart completely shattered, so she quickly dashed over to kindly assist them. "Listen, from this moment forward, I will wash my own face. You do not need to act as my servants anymore." Shockingly, through the timid words of Han Mak, La Van Vie horrifyingly discovered that her original host was incredibly unreasonable and violently cruel. That arrogant villainess aggressively mandated that the moment her eyes opened every morning, a steaming basin of hot water had to wait right beside her bed. Otherwise, she would violently tear the household apart. What an unbelievably terrifying, utterly cruel monster! Han Mak instantly accepted La Van Vie's new rule. Only little Han Dung felt deeply heartbroken, whimpering, "Sister-in-law, did I commit a terrible mistake? Why refuse Han Dung's service? Do you suddenly despise me entirely?" La Van Vie panicked. "Absolutely not, my precious Dong Dong." La Van Vie quickly comforted her. "You silly child. How? I cannot dote on you enough." Dong made no mistakes. It is merely that I terribly failed to treat you properly until now. Thus, my heart aches with immense regret. Moving forward, I promise to fiercely love you two more, and your eldest brother will, okay? Witnessing La Van Vie's tender display deeply moved Han Diep's heart, wonderfully causing his favorability level to increase slightly. Praise the heavens! Golden cornflour and crisp cabbage magically reappeared inside her supernatural supermarket. Riding an incredibly joyful morning high, handsome Han Diep enthusiastically volunteered to cook a warm breakfast. He tenderly wanted his wife resting, but how could La Van Vie agree? Heavens, how could I let you cook? With a completely barren pantry and my magical supermarket hidden, where exactly would the miraculous food plausibly come from? Absolutely zero need. It is better to let me expertly cook. Heaven be praised. His morning favorability spike magically unlocked a significantly more substantial, perfectly delicious meal. If his favorability continues climbing wonderfully, greatness awaits. Soon, thanks to this magical cornflour and cabbage, a lavish feast will miraculously appear inside my house. A steaming bowl of noodles for breakfast? This only made our handsome husband Han Di incredibly paranoid. Where did you summon these ingredients, Luo Wanyi? Spring has barely begun, so how did you find such vibrant, fresh cabbage alongside all this premium, finely ground corn flour? Where did you uncover these treasures? Honestly, our flustered Luo Wanyi possessed absolutely no clue how to explain this. She decided to bluff and blame her vicious stepmother. I managed to score all these goodies by shamelessly kissing up to my maiden family. Luo Wanyi lied with a perfectly frosty expression. My initial wicked plan was to hoard everything, but since this endless poverty is just so depressing, I gracefully offered it up for a family feast. Stop your interrogations and just hurry up and eat. All right, I perfectly grasp your meaning, Han Di replied with a heavy sigh. Since you swiped these goods today, I shall chop a mountain of firewood as repayment. Never crawl back to your maiden home in the future to beg for pathetic handouts. After all, we share a household now and must survive entirely on our own. Since our heroine wanted everyone well fed, her plate remained entirely bare. This sudden martyrdom deeply confused the whole household. Historically, this wicked wife shamelessly devoured the most delicious portions. Why on earth was she acting like a selfless saint today? It felt undeniably suspicious. Our brooding husband could not stomach this sight, directly shoving his entire meal towards her. Ding! his affection meter gradually increased. Potatoes, eggplants, and spinach miraculously unlocked inside her secret system shop. This cheat ability was truly overpowered. Nobody would ever starve again. However, before they could celebrate this fleeting joy, a massive crisis struck the household. This newfound angelic humility from our wife was simply too bizarre, lacking any past precedents. It triggered all our heroes' paranoid alarms. Not only did she firmly reject the lion's share for her own stomach, but she stubbornly refused the food Handi offered. A massive conspiracy was definitely brewing here. Thanks to his intense paranoia, his fragile affection points instantly plummeted. And tragically, the newly unlocked pumpkins and plump eggplants were forcefully deleted from her system shop. An absolute heartbreaking catastrophe. I refuse to eat because everyone else suffers immensely compared to me. You brave the wilderness, chopping wood to earn our survival funds, and our precious babies are incredibly tiny. How could I let them starve? I am the only one relaxing comfortably, so eating less is perfectly fine. Why must you constantly judge my intentions? Have I committed some horrible sin today? Our dramatic queen felt so deeply offended that massive tears cascaded down. Witnessing this heartbreak, the innocent little siblings finally cracked and launched a righteous, tearful defense. Big brother, our angelic sister-in-law harbors zero malicious schemes. Why unleash such terrifying anger? Quickly apologize and soothe her wounded pride. How can you let your wife swallow such bitter injustice? Instantly, our stoic husband petrified into stone. His paranoia only flared because her actions were bizarre. Who predicted it would trigger such an apocalyptic emotional disaster? Historically, the wicked Luo Wanyi would violently screech and throw absolute tantrums. But today, heartbreaking tears cascaded down in absolute silence. I have never witnessed such devastating vulnerability. Perhaps my paranoid judgment was wrong today. Drowning in agonizing guilt, our proud Han Di surrendered his ego, offering his handkerchief to his wife while muttering an awkward apology. Yet, despite this, dark suspicion still pierced his heart. So, he couldn't swallow that mysterious bowl of noodles. Desperate to escape, Han Di forged an excuse, babbling about urgently needing to chop morning firewood before practically teleporting out the door. Although our scheming Luo Wanyi wished to feed those noodles to her husband, she couldn't pry his stubborn jaws open. Well, if this stubborn man preferred starving over enjoying his feast, then let him starve. Luo Wanyi prioritized these kids. Han Di was a grown man. He could do whatever his stubborn heart desired. He has main character plot armor. Fasting a few days won't kill him. Our scheming Luo Wanyi happily babysat the munchkins until dusk, before clumsily attacking the kitchen for dinner. Because his fragile affection score had plummeted, her morning inventory was wiped clean, leaving only pathetic cabbages. How tragic! My poor pumpkins and eggplants suffered bitter injustice, vanishing from shelves before they were tragically deleted. Even though he awkwardly offered his handkerchief earlier, it wasn't enough to fix his stats. Those sweet pumpkins and eggplants remain locked away. I really must tread incredibly carefully around this highly perceptive, dangerous man, or else our entire family won't secure a single egg tomorrow. If any food spawns on the magical shelf, I must snatch it instantly, our brilliant Luo Wanyi plotted. This man is way too scheming. I honestly wonder if he will successfully forage precious rice later. If he returns victorious with rice, combining it with today's culinary masterpiece, our family won't suffer from starvation for the next 48 hours. However, while our scheming Luo Wanyi was gleefully cooking dinner, a piercing wail suddenly echoed. How incredibly bizarre. Dong Dong was outside adventuring with Han Mo. Why is her sobbing echoing here? It turned out that little Dong Dong, Trouble always tracked down the adorable Han siblings outside. A neighborhood bully, using his giant meatball size, rudely snatched little Han Dang's favorite toy. Wanting to protect his sweet sister, young Han Mac bravely charged the giant meatball, sparking absolute chaos. Being pint-sized, our brave little hero was completely outmatched. Yet, fueled by brotherly love, he fiercely swung his tiny fists. Thank heavens Wanyi sprinted out for a heroic rescue. Otherwise, our poor little guy would be sipping his dinner through a straw tonight. Our fierce heroine simply wanted to deliver a genuinely terrifying warning, hoping the chubby tyrant would forever tremble before bothering her precious little dumplings ever again. But plot twist! The bully's obnoxious mother suddenly stormed onto the battlefield, screeching like a defective siren. "How dare you scold my darling boy? Your wretched brats lack both a father and mother. They absolutely deserve a good painful smack. Stop playing the victim here. Who gave you the audacity to bully my precious, perfect little treasure? Have a death wish? So what if I discipline your spoiled brat?" our fiery Wanyi roared. "Your giant meatball provoked my sweet angels first. If you deeply fear others correcting your darling son, maybe try parenting him with actual manners. Keep your little menace locked indoors." Wanyi's majestic volume escalated, releasing such an intimidating aura that the chubby tyrant accidentally tripped and tumbled straight into the muddy dirt. Given his remarkably round physique, hitting the ground like a plump potato naturally caused immense pain, launching dramatic, endless wailing. Unsurprisingly, the obnoxious mother erupted like an active volcano. Her precious bully always reigned supreme. Suffering defeat was completely uncharted territory for them. Witnessing her precious darling, humbled by our magnificent Wanyi, pushed her past the breaking point. Boiling with fiery rage, she unleashed a deafening, incredibly ungraceful verbal assault. "Listen closely, you arrogant girl. Mr. Handy might treat you like a pampered princess indoors, but I absolutely refuse to entertain your dramatic little tantrums. For harming my precious angel, I will personally teach you a painful lesson." Like an angry wild boar, the dramatic neighbor charged forward, planning to deliver an absolutely legendary smackdown. But our heroine possessed flawless martial arts. With one graceful sweep, she flattened the aggressive woman, completely disabling her ridiculous attack. What absolute sorcery is this? She historically possesses the physical strength of wet noodles, definitely incapable of combat. Since when did she unlock such monstrous power? The humiliated neighbor cursed furiously, internally, suddenly realizing her total inability to physically overpower our upgraded heroine. Switching to psychological warfare, she dramatically wailed, "Oh heavens above! Everyone help!